Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
that
right.
only takes 50 gigs.
That's not what Lumia needs. Oh, okay. Well, I looked at external graphics card setups, and those were almost as expensive as getting a new computer. Like, all right.
You're just better off working with Macs.
I have a desktop Mac at home.
No, with Macs, 3ds Macs. It's
Oh, 3ds Macs.
It's a lot quicker, and with the setup, it should run.
We could all throw in $30 and each.
We have to soup up all of the seat holders, the license holders at our office that operate Lumia. We have to pimp those.
Oh yeah, I tried Lumia once, and I just reverted back to Macs.
Yeah, just the lights just all go down.
Yeah, it takes too much. With Macs, you could do like a really nice, even if you have like 2 or 3 computers, set up a rendering farm, and it just flies through. So with other programs, it's just so heavy faster in your GPU.
We've been using NC a lot lately too, which is mostly for like interior stuff, but it's worked for some exterior applications, which is pretty interesting.
Yeah, Blender is really good.
Yeah.
Hong, you're not here.
I am
You
still.
know that
Desmond, you're not here on campus.
I'm saving up for the next time.
Losers.
Okay, yeah.
You should. You should have your review here. Oh my goodness.
But it's also reducing
Daniel, how are you tonight?
I'm well. How are you doing?
I'm super sparkly.
Good. Is it warming up there?
Yeah, it's warmer here than it is in LA, I just read.
Really?
Yeah, which makes me laugh.
Good. They had it coming.
They did have it
It's not
coming.
exactly.
No, it is. It's got a steep learning curve, but once you get used to it, the stuff that you do in that program is just insane.
Our purpose is this semester as far as like getting things done.
You go, look, 20 people.
And they're animated.
Well, you have to do it with Macs. You just use RPCs.
Animated.
Well, Macs is an animated software. That's the first horse story. It's created all in Macs.
Sorry, it was warm. Yeah. Sorry.
That's the reason.
So, how was Professor Farrow?
So now he's saying he will be with us, but online, not here. I think he's okay. I think, he's been giving care to, I think, his mom. All the details. This the husband of someone who gave care to her dad for 11 and her mom for 12 consecutively, so 20 something.
Wow.
It's like daunting. It's a daunting commitment. I remember one night we got the they wear a necklace which has like an activator, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like a helpmate, like I follow, yeah, lifeline is what it's called. Mm-hmm. And we got the lifeline. The lifeline got the signal. They called Tracy, and the operator said that her dad had like maybe had the remote, like the remote on the back of the couch, and the remote had fallen behind the couch, and he then reached behind the couch and then as he was like leaning against the couch to reach down further, the couch pushed against the wall and he couldn't retract his arm, and he was starting to go numb.
Oh.
So we had to race from north. We lived in South Royal Oak at the time, and so we had to drive from Royal Oak to Birmingham, where he was living. We walked in the room and he's kind of like blue. Oh, jeez.
I'm starting to think like with what we have with like the Nest cameras now, you can set something like that up because it can recognize people and it can recognize animals and stuff. You could set something like that up where you have privacy still, but it would be able to like figure out this person's like on the floor or like this person's.
Yeah.
I know because I have some smart home things, and I can have it where if it detects a movement in the middle of the night and then they don't come back to that room within like 30 minutes, then it sends a signal.
I don't know, I'm still old school.
What's that?
I'm still old school. Tech is nice, but there's something. But
This is a guy that works with 3 computers. Right?
pretty much.
No, I understand.
You gotta adapt.
It's combining those things, which is hard to do.
Yeah.
Well, I never thought I'd be doing like a class format like this. You know, been teaching old school for, 30 years. And they called me to teach this with a string and 2 soup cans. It's like, what?
There's have you seen Office 365? Where it's just a blank canvas that everybody can work on. You can do 3D models in this canvas.
No, that sounds interesting.
I've been following the for, I don't remember what the program's called. As opposed to doing like working drawings, you'll bring a giant tablet on the site, and everything's there, so the contractors can come up and they see the 3D model and everything.
Yeah, you can do that with Autodesk A360.
No, but it wasn't that. It was something blue. Can't remember what.
Bluebeam?
Honestly, I wish I could tell you what it was. I just can't. I remember blue was in the name.
It's not.
We'll give Ash a couple more minutes. I know that I sent the link to Dan. Maybe I'll just straight up invite him again.
I follow Art Daily or Amazing Architecture on Instagram. And they had it's a pair of glasses where it can like bring the 3D model up off your desk. You can walk around, it's like a 3D model on your desk, digital.
That's pretty cool. Actually, thinking of your
It's just like the whole. I think it was a HoloLens. It looked like it was sitting on your desk. You take the lens off, and there's nothing there.
Okay.
But you put the lens back on, and you can like walk around it and move it like Tony Stark.
That's pretty cool.
Like Tony Stark.
Yeah,
That's your reference.
I'm not kidding. It looked like a hologram. You like take pieces off the model, and
That's pretty cool.
Here's Dan.
Mark, how adventurous would you feel with going looking into like green concrete and stuff like that? The calcium sulfate product.
I'd be open to that. Trevor, how are you? Fine, thank you. Nope.
Just areas where I have info.
Hi, Dan. How are you?
Okay, how are you?
Excellent. Thank you. Glad you could join us.
Yeah, I'm sorry it's just virtual today.
No problem. We've got a few minutes. I know that Ash is going to be able to join us. I'm just not exactly sure when he'll be here, but I'm delighted that your schedule improved today, Dan, so that you could join us. So just to be clear, I'm on campus tonight, and I will be here Thursday night. We scored T219 for tonight's session. I'm not sure where I'll home base the class session on Thursday night. We'll find somewhere. I mean, it could be just a crit room or an open classroom on the top floor, wherever there ain't noise or wherever there ain't people. We'll just sort of plug in and hook up the class session and run it from there. But in any event, we will have Ash as our guest critic tonight, and I think he will be able to be here for the entire 2 hours, 15 minutes, and then we'll have another session on Thursday night where not only will Dan and I be here for that, but Michael DeCoster, one of our associates, one of our vice presidents, our only vice president, will be joining us as a critic. And Michael has been with our company for almost 12 years and has done a number of these mixed-use buildings. So his expertise, I think, will be something that you'll value and benefit from. So the punchline is, for those of you that are nearby, like, you know, not like Ball State or Indianapolis, but not like, you know, El Paso, but if you're in Ann Arbor or Farmington, you know, I encourage you to be on campus for the review. So please try to be here for that. I can't require you to do that, but I do certainly encourage you to do that. A number of your colleagues are here tonight, for example. We'll get started in just a few moments. The format for tonight is as follows. So we will be reviewing 4 projects tonight and 3 projects on Thursday night. And the projects will be presented by the team, right? So team members should anticipate sharing the responsibility of disseminating and, if you will, unpacking the presentation plate by plate within a time frame of 9 minutes. And my trusty phone will make an unspeakable noise that will interrupt the flow of conversation. And when you hear that, you actually need to look far ahead if you're still way behind in the process of your presentation, and come to some summarizing remarks to move out of the presentation mode so that we can move into the critique mode. The critique mode will take about 16 minutes. That will give everybody about 25 or 30 minutes, all things considered, for each group. Again, I anticipate that you're going to be sharing the responsibility of the presentation, and I'm thinking that we should screen share the presentation as we go through it. These are recorded, as you know, and I encourage you all, for the groups that are presenting tonight, to go back tonight or tomorrow morning and spend a few minutes to, you know, review their presentation, so that the feedback is fresh, and take notes from those comments as well. And certainly, when we have a sit-down conversation on Tuesday, 1 week from tonight, that basically takes apart all of this and puts it back together, critically speaking, you will definitely need to have watched the presentation before then. All right. So who's first? Casey, you guys are first.
Mm-hmm.
So do you want to go ahead and screen share? For all of us that are here in the room, if you're online, you need to mute your presentation because you'll get Jimi Hendrix feedback. So Caitlin and Daniel are not muted.
Can anyone hear me?
Yes,
You can hear me?
Nathan can.
Okay. I just don't know why my mic is saying I'm muted. But if you can hear me, that's good. I'm having trouble hearing Mark, though. You're muted. Correct?
Mark is muted, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I can't hear Mark.
Okay. Should I mute myself then?
Yes.
Hello?
There we are. Is anyone talking right now?
I can't hear anything.
Okay.
Whoever is presenting should be unmuted, but their sound could be turned off so they don't
Casey has his presentation shared right now on his screen, but nothing.
So he should be unmuted.
Oh, did somebody mute him? Is he actually? Yeah, he's going through the slides.
My
Well,
bad.
we're going to start over.
I think we know.
Okay, we got it. We can hear you now.
Start back. Where am I at? Okay, so thing that me and conversation about how we wanted to lay out our building. What we decided was that we wanted a strong face on John R. and Alfred, and then also a courtyard that the residents can use on southeast or southwest side. So the most logical thing was start off with an L-shaped building. This this initial mass model that we did, and going from there, we did a series of sun paths that show when the courtyard would be illuminated, when the east side of the east resident getting like the morning sun. And as I said, but no one heard, this is all in like world, so it doesn't take into account buildings on the east side of John R. And then I plugged in our building shape into Insight to what needs to be done to building. And so this slide focuses on each individual wall and their glazing types. So the left column is the window to wall ratios for each side. The middle is the shading depth, and then the side is the type of glazing that we would need. And this goes further into lighting, HVAC, and construction necessary. And then also PV panels and how much we would need on the roof in order to achieve a zero net building. 3 are all different axon of our building. So this is from the corner and Alfred. This is Alfred, and then the residence on the west side courtyard, and you can see the parking on the ground floor. And then these are program sections to better illustrate how we plan on making this building. So the yellow is all the residential, and that's along the outer edges of the top floor. Building maintenance stays close to the part of the courtyard and the alleyway. The retail is along John R. And then circulation is in the center and at the and southeast corners. And then looking at the bottom section on this page, you can see there's a section of building maintenance that is in the armpit of the building, and that would be laundry spaces or other amenities that we don't necessarily want to be on the edge of the building and take what could be glazing for residences. And then these are elevations that I made from Revit that show the fenestration on each side of the building. A little bit. And floor plans, this would be the garage floor plan. And so it's one way, and there's 45 spaces in this. And then I didn't update this, but the columns on the west side or east side of the building, the middle of parking spaces, but I actually didn't count those when I was 45. So there's 45 here, and then as you saw earlier in the Axon view, there is 8 on the ground floor. It's a total of 53 spots. And then, which you can see all the mechanical along the west courtyard, so that you can easily access those to maintain them. They're also along the alleyway, again, for easier access for maintenance. And then it goes on to Caitlin.
Yeah.
I don't know if she wants me to keep tapping or if she. Hey, Caitlin, can you unmute yourself?
Yeah, sorry.
I can't hear.
Oh, I can't see it. Where is she?
Yeah.
Caitlin? Caitlin?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you want me to hit the next button, or do you want to screen share?
I can do it.
Okay.
Turn your mic up a little bit so we can hear in the room. Thanks. You can go ahead.
Okay, so this is the layout for the typical 1-bedroom floor plan. And then this would be to show the 2-bedroom floor plan. And this would be the level 2 floor entire floor plan. As Casey said earlier, the amenities are in the armpit of the building because they don't need as much glazing space as residential units would have. This would be the 3rd floor with the dog washing again in the kind of armpit area of the floor plan. This is the 4th floor with the telephone and electrical space again in there. And then this would be the 5th floor plan. And then there is, there would be outdoor terrace space in the area where that second 2-person bedroom is on each of the other floors. It just didn't show up, I guess. Yeah.
Caitlin?
Yeah. Ooh.
Mark would like you to point out the stairs. Trying.
Sorry, what was that? One more time, sorry.
Can you point out the stair?
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So this is the west stairwell right here. And then the southeast stairwell would be right here. Oh my God.
Can you hear me okay, Caitlin?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, so just if you go back to your unit plan for a second, the 2-bedroom units, I think those, I think the bathroom door in the from the larger master suite should probably swing into the bathroom.
Oh, yeah, sorry. It is that way and all the...
And I feel like everything else is looking pretty comfortable, pretty reasonable. Although I think the Xbox that you've got, which I suspect is for your mechanical appliance, probably needs to be in its own wall construction, and that's going to have an impact on your elevations, U2. So you need to think through the way that the Magic Pack impacts your floor plan and also the elevations, because that's going to have a visual that's going to have to relate back to your fenestration strategy. If we go to the 1-bedroom unit,
Mark, can I ask a quick question while we're on that?
Is the lower closet by the refrigerator a pantry, or is that a hall closet?
More of a pantry.
Is the closet by the refrigerator a pantry or a coat closet, Caitlin?
It's a pantry.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. It's a pantry.
Thank you. So is your mic gone?
No, it's showing that it's on, but I don't.
There you go.
know what's going on.
Okay.
Mark, is my mic
Okay, so I can hear you. Can you hear me okay, Caitlin?
Yeah.
Okay, so I think some of these plans will want to be amended with small notations. So, I mean, they can be in that green ink that you've got, or in the smaller ink like you use for LTU or your own names on the title, so that we can clearly, so that anybody walking in the room and participating in this review can understand what those smaller spaces are serving, like linen, pantry, coats, that kind of thing. Some of the rooms are self-evident and they don't need that kind of detail. But I also think that as you get further into the plans, there are going to be material changes for flooring. So there's going to be thresholds. There's going to be tile. I presume there's going to be like wood floor or carpeting or both. And so you're going to want to indicate those material choices and their limits in all of the plans, So that's the next step. Also on the 1-bedroom, you need to partition out that Magic Pack unit and let its impact show on the building facade, right? I also think that some basic room dimensions would be helpful. So maybe it says master bedroom, 13 in the horizontal width, 14 in the vertical width. So major rooms, living rooms, kitchens, sleeping rooms should all get a kind of a room number size indicated on the plans. And then for the next step, I think you're also going to need to indicate ceiling plans to show us the condition of the differences in the ceiling height relational to the floor with above finished floor elevations, spot elevations. You're also going to want to show light fixtures, whether they're, incandescent or not incandescent, but like recessed or flush, right? Or surface mounted, fans, smoke detectors, all of those good things, as well as mechanical and as well as fire suppression. So those are kind of next step reference points for you all to include in the planning. And then if we go back to the overall unit plans, if we can go like to the typical third floor. So I think unit 17, can we go up one floor? 30, can we go up one floor?
Yeah, level 4 or 5?
Unit 42, all three of those units are kind of crappy.
Yeah.
Right, because and I don't mean to be like mean, but like they are, right? Because like you would not rent them because the bedroom is really the only room, you guys, right? With fenestration, like outdoor fenestration. Now that's not to say that, we can't have a unit with only one window on the outside wall. I think we've seen, and we will continue to see, not only in our studio, but in other studios, we'll see narrow and somewhat deep units. But when a unit like is chunky wide, like this one is, where we have like the living realm, right? The living and kitchen realm without any fenestration on it, then I think when you're looking at that, right? When you're studying that, you have to say, is that really a desirable unit? How can I make this work more effectively? So maybe unit 42 is a studio unit, right? Or maybe it slides south and unit 45, for example, is a smaller unit, right? So those are kinds of tests and examinations that as architects, right, you'll go through. I appreciate this as a snapshot in time, but I want to make sure that you see this as a kind of a red or yellow flag. And if you didn't catch this, or if you thought that, yeah, maybe we can talk about this tonight, we're talking about it, right? So I want to make sure that you understand that concern. Are you comfortable with that, Caitlin? You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I totally agree.
Yeah.
Mark.
Also, yeah, go ahead, Dan.
I'm sorry, having trouble reading my mic on and off. But just a couple of quick questions. I wanted to reinforce what Mr. Farlow is saying. Is it possible that small wing can be shifted upward so it's closer to be abutting unit 41 than 42, or is that throwing havoc into the stairs and elevator placements or changing something on grade?
Yeah, so the question is if the short leg, Caitlin, slides up, it reveals, right? It reveals more of that west skin for you to fenestrate, for you to introduce windows into unit 30, into unit 42, and I think the other one was 17. Now, of course, that may like make the waters muddy vis-a-vis the exit stairs and the lower level, but like that's another way to explore, right? That's another way to explore the options.
My last quick question is, I'm really am not seeing any column lines left of A, and the span of the column span or base spacing between A and B seems quite large compared to the other base bands. I'm just wondering sort of what's happening here.
Can you talk to that, Caitlin?
Think I may have just messed up when I was shifting rooms around and shifted column line B with it.
Yeah, I can't understand why there'd be a column at B2 and a column at B3, for example.
Yeah.
So maybe the thought would be, from the structural standpoint, seeing if we can get this registration and coordination issue addressed going forward. I have a quick question for Professor Farlow. Doors that go onto balconies should be what?
They should be 3-foot doors. And what's the other question?
Should they be sliding?
So they can be sliding doors because balconies can be 4 inches lower than the floor level of the unit they are serving. So the ADA accessibility code is actually does not apply to a unit balcony in actual fact. Now, that's not to say that they don't apply to a hardscaped deck type surface for a community space, but they can be sliding doors. Yeah, and they can swing in.
Sure. You know, my other question would be, as you're looking through this, there seemed like there could have been some opportunities. For example, Unit 41 doesn't have a balcony, right? But
yeah,
you know, but it could actually have quite a generous balcony, perhaps. That might be.
Yeah, and balconies are supposed to be on the street, Caitlin and Casey, and not on the interiors.
Yeah, that was sort of my other question here.
Yeah, that's another way to make sure the way you're like deploying the units as you configure them in these plans is consistent. Do you follow what we're saying, Caitlin?
Yep.
Okay.
My other quick comment probably would be the issues that we talked about last time. You know, how are the bioclimatic conditions being measured? I'm not really seeing that too much here. I just saw a little bit of the solar angle study at the very beginning, but I'm still not seeing that being completed based on the textbook descriptions of the ideal or optimum conditions that we've talked about earlier. And that will come up for your lab review on the 1st of March.
Right.
That and construction type, and checking against height and area requirements and identifying fire ratings of structure and exterior walls and exit corridors. So
now, one thing that you all have benefited from is seeing some of the work that our students from previous semesters, where you've seen the way that they've indicated like life safety, you know, travel distances and things like that. Graphically speaking, occupant load calculations. So I guess what I'm saying is I'm not seeing on these diagrams, unless I'm missing it, any indication of like occupant load calculations or travel distances. Is that a correct inference? Okay, and then also maybe some diagrams might be missing right now for, you know, what are the ADA requirements, right, for accessibility in like the elevators or in public single occupant toilets that you're indicating, or stairways, those kinds of spaces. So I'm not seeing those things. I want to be sure that my inference is correct on that point. The point being, right, that for the second benchmark, those factors will be looked for in your work. So make sure that you're alert to that. I definitely appreciate the 3D sketches. but I'm wondering if there's maybe any other, I mean, I appreciate also the way that Casey begins the presentation. If we can go back perhaps to that first plate, do we have to go back to you, Casey, to do that? Or can Caitlin run it back to the very beginning?
Yeah.
So I appreciate this first drawing. Thanks, Caitlin. But it's not really like clear how this form comes to be. And so I feel like you need a set of diagrams that parse out what the thinking was that led you to this L-shaped conclusion. Can you move us to the very first plate?
Actually, I don't think I.
Okay. So we can go to Kate.
She does.
Yeah, I thought she did. Here we go.
She goes to like the Benchmark-1 in the class.
Why don't you go ahead and grab it? Your camera's not on. There we go. Okay, so I think it's really important, you guys, to show a series of diagrams, and it can be from this view, for example, that show a buildable footprint that the zoning ordinance does allow for this site, right? So what is that volume? And so that volume can be this giant blue cube, right? And that blue cube is limited by an Alfred Street setback. It's limited by a plane that indicates building height. So you should actually be illustrating with a package like this, these kinds of drawings. This is not a technical kind of drawing. This is a design drawing that you could have easily included here to help make your case. And then you begin to sort of show the variations or permutations of this drawing by showing the idea of a courtyard, and letting that volume, right, slide out of the big blue volume, let it rise vertically out into the sky, so that we begin to see the benefit of a courtyard that provides daylight and opportunities for views. So these are not necessarily like constructional diagrams or technical diagrams. But they, I think, tell the story for a developer to help her or him understand how your idea came to be. It's really important that you start to think about your work as this logical, conclusive, step-by-step, iterative process. Dan, do you want to make any closing remarks? We're actually sort of out of time.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with the importance of diagramming, being able to, I mean, I can't tell you how many times on a jury and someone basically has to go back to the beginning because they can't understand the origin and the initial concepts that are developing the project. So if you can do that at the very beginning and do that in a very clear way, I think you set yourself up for a good start, so to speak, with your presentation, because now your jury members are following along rather than saying, hey, I don't quite get this. Can we take a quick look at that one floor plan that you showed us? I think it was a 1-bedroom unit. I have a quick question for Professor Farlow.
That might be on hers. Oh, thanks.
It's the one, right there. So
yeah.
My question is on the HVAC unit that's on the exterior wall.
Yeah.
So I think because we're going to probably see this a number of times, I'm going to ask it now. What would your thoughts have been about moving that bedroom wall, let's say further to the right to some extent, I don't know how far, and actually sliding that HVAC unit into the closet zone, so it's not a chunk out, so to speak, out of the the living space?
Yeah, I think that's actually a desirable thing.
Okay.
I think also, Caitlin and Casey, so these plans are kind of like platonic, right? They're ideal. They don't show the corridor. They don't show the relationship of this unit and the bedroom in this unit to like the living room or the bedroom in the unit left and the unit right. They're just these pure drawings. They don't even have like the balcony on them, right? So I feel like one of the things that you can do is contextualize these plans just a little bit more, because I think you'll want to have the balcony indicated on the living room, and it's seeing that balcony that may cause you to come to the conclusion, right, that Professor Farrow just indicated, which is, gosh, that living room looks kind of funky now that it's got this zig and zag in that corner. Wonder if there's a way that the closet can swallow it, which is also why I'm interested in finding other ways of identifying storage in some of these units. So for what that's worth. Yeah, that's a good suggestion.
Okay, that's all I have for now. Thank you.
Thanks. Can we just go back to the ground floor? It seems pretty reasonable. Some of the paint stripes need to, like at A1, right? That paint stripe needs to run across so that it's always clear that that ain't a parking place, right? Wherever that happens, like at A6, right? Yeah. And so on. B7 or whatever, or B3, whatever that is, right? And also indicate the everyone, you should indicate the graphical directional arrows, and the slope of the ramp needs to have the stair cut, right? That line with the zigzag in it to indicate that it goes up, and that some of the stuff in this ground floor plane is maybe programmed underneath the ramp, if there is program there, right? I think the other point about making sure that the A column line, Caitlin, starts on the west wall and not somewhere in the middle of the building, I think that will be useful. Make sure that the doors in the lower level stairs swing in, everyone, right? And make sure that the stairs have doors, like the southeast stair does not have a door. We've talked about this before, and I had hoped that you would have caught that for now. So make sure the paint is indicated, make sure the column lines are indicated, make sure the stairs are provided with egress doors, and also make sure that if you have like one-way direction or double direction on your underground parking plans, indicate that as well.
I would ask that you need to take another look at this, because you've got at least 3 spaces that can't be used.
Right.
4 spaces that cannot be used the way they're laid out. I think it's possible they can be used, but if you start experimenting with handicap stall widths and compact car widths, you might be able to get these back again, right? So my other comment would be probably label by number all of the stalls. So if we have a question about a stall, we can call it out by number. Label whether it as handicapped or compact, so therefore we know it's different.
Yeah, brilliant.
And then please label the column line and dimensions for the structure, so that we have a sense of support conditions, spanning, etc.
And maybe I know that you guys are working these drawings out at, like, if this was in AutoCAD, it might be like in an LT scale of 48, because this is a quarter scale drawing. But it's really hard to read the nomenclature of the drawing, like A and 3 and so on. So just double size those column bubbles so that we can read them or override them.
Yeah, and they're not correct, because there's a column that doesn't have a bubble, as pointed out. Also, right. The column on the far right-hand side without the bubble, my concern is that's going to be in a location where the car door opening is going to be a problem. They may wind up hitting the column when they're trying to open the door.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
And we've talked about that before. Yeah.
Okay.
And I think there's probably a generator down here, unless you located it on the first floor. Yeah. Okay. Thanks. Okay. Let's move on to the next group. Thanks, Caitlin. Thanks, Casey.
Thank you.
Who's next?
Me and Andrew.
Okay. Who's going to lead?
I can present.
Okay.
or screen share. I mean.
And we do have a copy of our slide in the folder as well if you wanted to look at it by yourself.
Thanks, Andrew.
Okay, so here's our proposal.
Ready? Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Okay, I'm Desmond, and that's Andrew.
So basically, as you all know, the amenities provided within this space, of course, has some exterior green space, about 50 residential units, underground parking for them, attached storefronts, and then the fitness center, which we're incorporating for residents and non-residents.
Here's our overview. So, site location in context.
And this is showing the footprint. You could see John R. Street is on the right, and Alfred Street is about on the north side. And we came up with this shape basically by knowing that we wanted to utilize the storefronts on John R. Street and Alfred Street on the corner, with a main access point on Alfred Street. And of course, we knew that the ramp had to be in the alley, so that kind of helped give us our shape and figure out how we wanted to rotate it within the site.
So here is a breakdown of the amenities and egress, the circulation, basically the program of the space from floor to floor for massing. Then we've got section and systems and efficiency, section 2, sorry.
Can you go back to that for a second, please? Thank you. All right, thanks.
Okay.
So this one right here for the building orientation, this is showing the sun path for the orientation, with the apartment unit facades facing the northeast and the northwest. And the little chart on the bottom left for the benchmark comparison is something from another class that we're in. And it's showing where the building falls out, of course, with not many specifications yet, but just on average with the placement. And it's showing where it falls out with the ASHRAE 90.1 and also the Architecture 2030. You can see the rating for them. It goes from 6.4 to 19.2. And we're about, I would say we're closer to the ASHRAE 90.1 without, figuring in the HVAC and everything, but according to the sunlight and the way that it's positioned in the location, it shows that we're, within the area that we want to be.
Okay, and then we have a structural system that we picked out from the list that was given. So this is the Delta Beam Slim Floor Structural System. And we've got the HVAC that we are incorporating in each of the units, little 30 by 30 magic pack.
And of course, the structural system that we showed that helps maximize space since it's so thin. And then the air conditioning unit, it's more flexible going from unit to unit. And it's also easier to separate the bills from apartment to apartment. And for the window to wall ratio, we were looking at the massing that we showed before with the ASHRAE specifications. And this shows the way that we position the building on each facade, like the north, south, east, and west, how it would actually interact with the sun, which would, in return, impact the daylighting, heating, and cooling. So these charts right here, basically it specifies the cost and efficiency according to the percentage of opening. So if we're looking at the first chart, it shows if you have it 90% open, how it's not as efficient, or how it could be more efficient if there's more or less sunlight depending on the area that it's on.
Right, but they also highlight the 40%, right?
Correct. The 40%, that's the one that we modeled inside of the program. So that's why that one's highlighted. So that was what we chose. And then the other ones are their suggestions also.
Okay. So that's basically meeting the ASHRAE recommendation.
As of right now with the placement, but that's without figuring into the HVAC system that we're doing or any other systems.
Right, but that's percent glazing, is it not?
Correct, it is.
And that is what your building has, so to speak?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, and then we've got the wall construction methods that we have.
And this is the same chart again. It's showing the one that we modeled versus other options that there are, which we're still looking into, of course, wood or metal construction, and the overall ability of how it would be insulated in accordance to heat loss in game.
So which one are you working with?
I'm not sure if we fully decided. I know we were doing the metal framing for the exterior. So I think that had to do with it was that consistent insulation, that board that gets taped together. I'm not sure the specific name for it.
And then we've got the HVAC system efficiency chart.
And this is the same thing, and I believe the one that we're using for this is considered as the ASHRAE package system, since they're all separate, which is the third one from the right.
Yeah, although the one on the far right is highlighted, so. I don't know if the Magic Pack might fit under another category. I know they have some so-called high efficiency units, which is the one I was suggesting. So I'm not sure if it may fit to the description to the one to the right of the ASHRAE package.
Okay, yeah, we weren't sure if it was specifically that one or the first one that's highlighted. Okay, so we'll check into that for sure to know. But that, of course, on efficiency is one of the better ones they show.
Yeah, I think I may be wrong. I thought you may be the second one from the right.
Okay, we'll look into that for sure.
Okay, and then we've got the plans and layout. So these are not fully done yet, but they're the overall structural and conceptual images for the building.
But we could skip to the floor plans, and those show more in depth what these will be updated to in the future.
Yeah, so here's the elevations that we've got set up, just showing the overall building. So we've got the underground. Andrew?
So on the underground level, you can see the ramp, of course, to enter on the left side, the bottom left. And we did that 45-degree parking for these cars to help maximize space and also help with where the columns fall out. There is one column that we're still working on moving around, which is in the top, that big open space there. We're trying to work that in. The other ones do line up properly, though, so far. You can see the egress for the staircase is on the top left of the image and the bottom right. And the elevator is in about the top center area. And, of course, the ramp section's on there with the 5% grade on the bottom and the top, and the 13% grade in the middle for the ramp.
How many units or parking stalls are there?
I believe there were 45 at first, but I think we're going to have to move some with the column placement once we get that one that's missing.
Is there one handicap here?
The handicap is above.
Yeah, they're on the ground floor level, which we'll show next.
Okay, sorry, there's some dashed lines that are next to a couple of those stalls. I thought those were the handicap stalls. Do you see what I'm saying?
Oh, those are just blanked off spaces where we didn't have enough room to fit based on the staircase or the columns.
Okay, that means something is in that zone then.
Okay, we'll adjust that.
I mean, is that what that means, that there's something physically in that zone?
That would be, yeah, I guess we were thinking of the parking lines you see on the street that are painted white. That's what we were trying to illustrate there, but we could change those.
Yeah,
Like just
actually, Andrew, so there's actually some, so a couple of you are indicating to me tonight, like in Casey and Caitlin's group, and in your group, Desmond and Andrew, kind of like, I don't mean ignorance is a negative thing, but just not cognizant, not entirely cognizant of the way, right, that we show this stuff. So in other words, there are rules, right, that we use to show, you know, a stairway that's been cut on the first floor that goes up to the second floor. So there's a rule that we hopefully taught you, that rule in first and second year here, that you carry on into your studies up to this level. And similarly, there's a rule in site design and landscape design and in parking lot design where the paint stripes for parking spaces are indicated a specific way, and that loading and unloading spaces and barrier-free spaces have a different kind of paint stripe graphic to them. We talked earlier about Caitlin and Andrew closing their parking spaces off so that we knew that those weren't supposed to be spaces. So there's some rules that you're sort of playing a little free and loose with here that I think you need to tighten up. For instance, at the end of like angled parking spaces, you should actually paint the stripe or the curve to show the direction that this closes on itself. And if you're not clear what those words mean, if you're not clear what I'm saying, go to the local Walmart, right? I'm sure it's clean. We've lost all the snow that's covered it. Go there. Don't do it at night when you can't see the blue stripes that I'm talking about, but go during the day and look at how they paint the parking lot to illustrate the way you move through it and the way you park, right? The way you're active and the way that you're passive. It's really important that your drawings tonight and as we move into the next semester, part of the semester, that they show this accurately. For instance, that line that we indicate with the squiggle, right, that you use to indicate a stairway going up that's getting cut at the plan cut. Remember, floor plans are section cuts, right? So too does that cut happen at the speed ramp, right? So like when I'm looking at this underground plan, I'm counting 2 cars parked underneath the ramp in the southwest corner, but that's not what you're intending to show, right? So like, because you're playing free and fast and loose with the rules. So make sure that you tighten up the plan at this level and indicate the structure, right? And of course, you're going to lose parking spaces when you do that. But I think those are some things that those are some like finger wagging things that I want to bring to the conversation. Also, I'm not entirely clear looking at the oblique, the very oblique first floor plan. If the generator's happening on the first floor or in this level, but if it's happening at the underground level, you'll probably want to indicate it.
Okay, just to, before we get off the parking level, just a couple things. Take a look at the far right-hand lane. Okay. Tell me how, if that's a one-way directional lane, tell me how I park on the left side of that aisle. If I'm going upward. Does everybody follow me?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it would have to be a back end.
It can't. You understand what's going on? It can't. It's unfortunate, but you're going to wind up basically having an aisle that probably will only be serving a single lane. But you'd have to reverse the directionality of the one that one lane, the second one from the right side, for that to work. The second point is, today I'm driving on the cul-de-sac where I live, and I'm cranking the car wheel all the way to the left to make that cul-de-sac turn. And I want you to look at your first entry point, which is a 180-degree turn. If you can't tell me that you understand the turning radius of a vehicle at 90 degrees and 180 degrees, you're missing a key point of designing this lot. Does that make sense?
Definitely.
Yeah, it's tough.
Because I don't think right now that turn, the right turn 180 that you've shown here, I may be wrong, but I don't think that's within the turning radius of a car. Professor Farlow, am I off?
No, I think it's worth being concerned about. When you have perpendicular parking, you have a much better chance because perpendicular parking takes up more space. It's 20 feet for sure, right? And it allows for that radius, but that first row is difficult unless you're all driving smart cars, right? Which do they even still make those, right? So I think that's going to be a really nasty turn.
Yeah, I think everyone has to show us that they understand those turning radii and that their project conforms to that. I guess I would add that to a list of requirements.
Now, do you have straight up like floor plans that are in the same orthogonal projection like this underground plan, Andrew? Okay, so let's look at those because we haven't even gotten into it and we're already into the discussion period of your.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I think there's 3 slides left total, but that's understood about the coding and the floor plan layout that you mentioned.
Good.
Thank you.
Thanks. Can you go on to the next plan?
Okay, so here's the first floor / ground plan where we've got a few more of the spaces and then everything that's laid out on the first level.
Okay, so standpipes usually happen in the stairwell, Desmond.
Right.
But meters and things like that could go into that space. I'm not sure what what's happening in dining? What room is that?
Andrew.
That's right by the outdoor space. So that's just a dining area for the residents, basically like a private area where they could overlook on the outdoor space while they're in that space. So it's not really a place you could go from off the street, but it's more for residents only to be in.
I guess I'd have to know more about the outdoor space and how like good it was, because I'm not seeing like windows into it from the dining room. Is that different and on top of the amenity or community space that we asked you to provide?
It's kind of an added option since we had a little room there, and we weren't sure if we were going to do a door from the outside space into there, if that would make unwanted people accessing the area without going through the lobby, or if we should just put windows. So we're kind of stuck there on what we should do if we utilize that dining.
I think we can work together to tighten up that plan. I think any developer would want that footprint to be as lean as possible, and doing an extra program there wouldn't bode well. The same comments below about, or earlier about parking graphics need to be stated here as well.
We have 2 large electrical rooms here too.
Mm-hmm.
Neither,
okay,
neither
can we
one,
go upstairs?
Neither one of them is directly linked to the outside.
Oh, can we go back one? So if I'm in that stairwell, Andrew and Desmond, at the southwest, at the southeast corner, that door opens out into the hallway. That's problematic. I need to be able to get directly out from that stairway. One of the stairs, like the upper left one, the northwest one, can open out into the lobby so long as the lobby is closed off from everything else, right? So I can discharge from that stairway into the lobby, but then the lobby, I have to be able to get out of the lobby. It looks like you've got like an airlock below the lobby note. I'm not sure what I'm looking at there.
It's
there's
a
some
vestibule to
graphics
the outside outdoor space.
Yeah, but there's only one set of doors, right? So, and it doesn't look like there's doors on Alfred Street. So, there's like lots of, plus the doors are opening onto the sidewalk. Again, we talked about that, how that's an issue. You cannot have doors opening onto the property line. They have to be recessed. So the door at the northwest corner has to open out into the lobby, but the lobby has to be its own rated enclosure, right? The door at the southeast corner has to go into its own corridor or go directly out to the alley. So I want you to fix that next week or this weekend. Can we go upstairs?
The stairs on the lower right could go to an internal corridor as long as that corridor leads directly out. There's no other doors on it.
Oh, I see. Okay, so we'll have to close it off there somehow.
Well, I'm thinking that could be the way to salvage that stair in its present location.
Yep. It could open directly out.
The other one has to reverse the door swing direction. Sorry, go ahead.
Okay, and then here is our residential floors, 2nd through 5th. So we've got 11 single units and then 4 of the double units. The double ones are in the
I love
corners.
the drawing. I love this diagram, right? That shows the 1s and 2s and those sorts of things, but it's actually too close in scale to the floor plan. So I would reduce that by half.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So that it's kind of just an icon or a symbol.
Okay.
And I wouldn't put the dimensions on that plan because you're going to reduce it anyways. Put it on the larger plan so that we can read that.
Okay.
And maybe show us or explain to us what does that diagram tell us about why you laid out the floor that way?
Another good point.
Right.
Balconies are all facing on the inside, but no balconies on the street. Am I wrong?
Yeah, they're all on the inside.
They should be all on the street.
They're supposed to be all on the street.
That needs to change. That's part of the program brief. Do we go upstairs?
Okay. So here's the individual units. So this is a 1-bedroom with the floor plan and then shown with light coming in and then at sunrise.
Mm-hmm. Those are nice
And then we've
drawings.
got it. Thanks. And we've got the 2-bedroom layout as well.
Don't leave it yet.
Yeah. Do we have minimum dimensions for bedrooms, Professor?
No. No, we did not.
Okay. What isn't a HUD
We had
like 8 feet or something?
Well, yeah. I mean, the code does, right? Okay. But I didn't provide like individual room dimensions. But all of these look. Can we go back to the 2-bedroom?
Oh, yeah.
So I'm not sure which is the better bedroom, but it might make sense to try. So how large is the 2-bedroom? Do you have an area indicated on that plan?
I don't. I've got it for the 1-bedroom, but I didn't do the 2
Yeah,
ones.
so I think you need to indicate that the long bedroom has no bathroom, and it might be that what you try to do is in that area where you've got the closet and the bureau is maybe that's a good place to put the closet and the bathroom.
So another question for Professor Farlow. If I have a choice between having a bathroom with an exterior window or a bedroom, what would I do?
Bathroom with an exterior window, or what was my other choice?
A bedroom.
Well, I want both.
This was that. Oh, okay.
Well, yeah. You know what I'm asking.
I would definitely rank a bedroom with the window over the bathroom with the window.
Okay, thank you.
But what I just suggested, Andrew and Desmond, was the cake and eat it too, right? I can have both. But I don't think the balcony has to go all the way to the bathroom. That's actually a really lovely bedroom proportion in a weird sort of way, because I can imagine like a desk and a chair there, or a seating area to read and write my sonnets in my waning years, right? But since it doesn't have a bathroom, you know, because I have to like do this giant candy cane to get to the bathroom, and I have to share it with Trevor, who I'm going to run into in the middle of the night, right? It's like that's kind of like wonky. So if this 2-bedroom, depending on its area, could actually have 2 small baths, that would be good. That would be good. And they don't both have to be barrier free. Only one of them would have to be barrier free. And so the smaller bedroom bath could be smaller.
And a quick question, Professor Farlow, at the entry door and bedroom door, what do you think about that?
So I would rather see the bedroom door slide closer to the. I might put the bedroom door closer to the closet, so that when I walk into the room or when I walk into the suite, I'm not looking into the bedroom straight away. I might even rehang the door the other way, right? The front door into the unit, so that its latch is on the opposite side, Andrew and Desmond, so that it opens into the suite and not against the wall, right? My view.
And my point is that if someone's coming out of the bedroom and someone's walking into the unit, you've got a door hitting someone.
Yeah, right. It's slapping Trevor right in the nose.
Poor Trevor.
Yeah, well, he's looking at me. He came here tonight, Dan, so he's getting picked on. But the closet,
that's your reward, Trevor.
This closet or the other?
So, yeah, and the last thing is that the entry doors into these suites, everyone, do need to have the ADA maneuvering dimension on both sides of the door. Not every door in the suite, but the entry doors do.
Last question for Professor Farlow. There looks like there's a bedroom closet going into the living room.
Yeah, that's probably the hall closet. I'm not really sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, like here's the bedroom closet, and then this one is just like a general
Right.
closet for like coats or
Very
whatever.
remote from the entry.
Yeah, you might want to revisit that. I think these plans, so I don't know how you constructed these drawings. They're really quite good graphically, and this is the kind of drawing that I think you should have, you know, to show the quality of the architecture, the quality of the proportions, and the use of the space. And you want to bring that into the next benchmark and into ceiling plans. But I also think that these are good drawings to continue doing overlays with, so that you refine the layouts that we're talking about here. Because within that square, I can riff on about 20 different units in about 10 minutes. That's how good, that's how fast we want you to be.
Okay. Did you want to talk about?
You're still showing those wonky Revit TV consoles, by the way.
I will download a different TV.
Please, all of y'all, will you do that? Will you stop that damn block?
Okay.
Do you guys not look at those and go, what am I indicating here? What in the world is that? Do you not say that?
It's a TV on a TV stand. My TV in my house looks like that.
You buy that. You can't even buy a TV anymore, right?
I mean,
come on, stands. I know.
I will send you a picture of the TV in my house. It looks just like that.
No, you are wrong. You are wrong. Or, and I'm picking on you now. Or your family bought it in 1994.
They didn't even have flat screens in '94.
So please be cognizant of, again, like when you open up the Wall Street Journal magazine every 8 weeks, or the Sunday New York Times magazine every Sunday, and they show real estate, you know, properties, high rises that are condo buildings, that they have the floor plans. Look at, you know, spend $5, you know, skip the latte, buy the Times at the Starbucks, and look at those floor plans. Just look at them. Look at the way they're graphically rendered. Your floor plan is pretty close to those. But if you look really hard at the design of those units, you'll see how strong they can be. And they don't show TVs like that.
All right.
I don't think we have a problem with the closet where you've shown it, but if there was another way you could get the closet closer to the front door, that would be even better.
Yeah, I mean, my 2 cents again is I would work really on the bedroom, having the chance of daylight rather than the rest of the bedroom or the bathroom.
Okay. All right, and then we've got the single unit if you guys wanted to look at that one.
The closets look
they look deep.
They look deep. They only need to be 24 inches clear.
Right.
Unless they're walk-in closets. But if they're walk-in closets, then they need to be more than 30 inches deep, right? So you're kind of in between.
And the exterior wall, how thick is that?
It's like that elevator wall that you drew last week.
Yeah, this one's the thick wall.
I mean,
it's not the Monadnock building.
It looks like it's about almost 18 inches or 16 inches.
Yeah, it's 18.
Okay, I mean, unless this is rammed earth like the other project, I'm not sure I understand that.
Are you guys indicating any like occupant load calculations anywhere that I'm missing, or egress paths or travel distances anywhere on these floor plans?
Not yet. We just had it in the massing first, showing the egress.
All right.
There was just a little occupancy for like the retail space.
Okay, so you did it there on the first floor. It's occupant load, not occupancy. Those are actually, I don't mean to be like nerdy here, but any more than I am, but occupancy has to do with use. Occupant load, right, has to do with the count relative to use. I know they look alike, and even my architects in the office interchange them, but I'm always wagging my finger at them when they do that. So occupant load is the calculation. And it would help to know how you got that number. That seems high. 970? That seems high.
I used like an online like little tutorial thing on how to with the space.
If you can promise me a tax return the same way, I'm going to have you do my taxes. I think if you break out the uses, right, and do the individual calculations and summarize them, I think you're going to come up with a smaller number.
Probably.
Okay, what else do you want to show us?
That's
You've got a couple minutes.
That's everything, I believe.
We went through all the slides, yeah.
Can we go back to the elevations?
And of course, we'll add the balconies on the east side and the north side.
Right. So I guess as you so thank you for the elevations. I'm not seeing sections yet. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. So I guess for the elevations, I want you to print them out to scale and start to draw them as overlays and try to look at the elevations as an opportunity to discuss the way this architecture fits into the community, a community of more vertically grained conditions and not these horizontally stacked sort of, Southfield office buildings. I think it's really important that your architecture read and behave as if it's a residential typology and not a commercial typology. Even though it has commercial uses, even though you have a commercial building code that's applying heavily to you, this is first and foremost a residential building. And it's really hard to do this, you guys. I'm talking to you guys, but I'm talking to all of you all, that one of the ways of looking at how to approach this is to break the building into increments or segments. Those are opportunities for material changes. Those are opportunities for massing shifts like projections and recessions. It's opportunities for elevating one component a little bit higher than the adjacent components and creating a staggering sort of roof line. Those are ways that we have to relate the architecture more carefully to its context, to void spaces across the street or to architectural conditions across the street, clustering window groups, not just running them in a sort of an increment or in an equally spaced array, which is what we do in office buildings, right? Letting them become situational to the rooms they serve. These are ways that we help calibrate and, as Dan said, as Professor Farrow said earlier, register the architecture to its use.
In other words, if I may intervene here, I'm Ash. You have to have a concept for your elevation, as Mark just mentioned. What I see here is just projection. You just project what your floor plan has in terms of windows and balconies, and that's not a good approach to solve an elevation.
It's a start, but it's not what you would show, right?
Thank you anyway, but
right, you would start there, but you'd quickly get that into like an overlay and then begin to study it.
And I would also suggest that in the section on exterior materials for the systems handout that I sent you, if you take a look at that page, those pages there, you see some examples. Many of them are residential mid-rise buildings, and you might see some of the properties or qualities Professor Farlow is talking about. I would ask the question, what does the dark brown on the left-hand side north and east elevation represent?
Oh, that's the building that's next to it.
Okay. Okay.
That's the building beyond. That's the apartment building beyond.
So to pick up on the comments a moment ago, though, I mean, that same mentality extends also to the balconies, which are part of the elevation. And the notion that they sort of just get stuck on and pulled off, it's not really thinking about what the balconies mean in terms of void, for example, in the overall mass. You might want to ask the question about how balconies become an element on the exterior.
Okay.
Got it.
Okay, thanks everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Who's next, Casey? Okay. Oh, we have a break. So Ash is here. Let's take a break. I need a drink of water. It's 5 minutes of. It's 4 minutes of. I'll be back at 7 o'clock, and we'll have one more presentation for the evening. Okay. Two more. I'm sorry. 2 more. Thank you. How you been?
Mark, thank you so much.
Are you teaching this class this semester?
I'm teaching Studio 1, AE.
Oh, you're
Changed
over in
name.
AE.
I got changed in Studio 1 this year. To finish Studio sequence with
Yeah,
wood.
let's walk down the hall. Are you going to stay here for a second?
We're gonna get a drink. There's a lock on the door.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Let's do that.
I
Thank you.
know the combination I have downstairs.
60 degrees outside. You're right.
Hey, Dan, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Did you end up meeting with Darpan yesterday?
Yes, we talked about some mapping and Highland Park municipal planning
Okay.
work that was done in 2014 and how we should be incorporating the maps from data-driven Detroit and the future plans according to the Highland Park Municipal Master Plan into the analysis of the sites. Excuse me.
Okay. Okay. He sent me an email today just saying like continue with the case studies and then like continue answering those questions that we had looked at last week.
I think it would be good. I think the other part is, I mean, I think recently I did send you an idea about a potential program element. Is that right?
Can you refresh my memory on that?
It was the notion that we could include something like a hobby area where people would sell or buy, you know, toys, cars, and things. And then there would be maybe an arcade, right?
Yeah, I remember that.
I mean, what I'm searching for is, you know, just some open thinking and conceptualizing or ideas thinking about what sort of elements belong in a project like this. Does that make sense?
Do you mean like should I just brainstorm this or should I do?
I would say I think now's the time to do that. Put some thoughts on paper and say, what about this? What about that?
Okay.
So, for example, the Highland Park site, there is a site just to the, I believe it's to the north of the Highland Park plant.
Mm-hmm.
That is targeted to be a like a dirt bike or something trail.
Okay,
it's
so you could
former
have
like quarry or excavated site, and I looked at it and I thought, well, that's interesting, right?
You could have something related to that, like some sort of.
Well, no, I just thought that wouldn't be a negative. That wouldn't have a negative consequence to what we're talking about for that project, would it?
No, I think.
Right.
Like there's a symbiosis there. You could have.
Right, and that's what I'm getting at. You know, if you have thoughts on paper, put them, you know, let's throw something out there. My thought when I saw that, and I do think the area is partially excavated, but, you know, what would be the acoustic issues with the surrounding neighborhoods? But
yeah,
maybe it's not, maybe the residential areas are not that established there that it would be of consequence.
Certainly something that would require some thought, but yeah. Okay,
so I mean, you know, the other thoughts would be, I mean, here's my other premise about this project. I mean, what is, you know, all these 3 sites have, you know, thousands, tens of thousands of square feet, right?
Yeah, like huge.
They have space like you can't believe.
Yeah.
So my point was with some of the ideas I was throwing out last time was, what if you have things that take a lot of space and room?
Yeah.
Right? That's okay.
Like indoor go-kart or something like that.
That's what I'm getting at. You know,
Yeah.
I've actually seen places where they do these drone races in abandoned industrial buildings, right?
Oh, yeah, those are wild.
So here's my point. What if you've got something that you could use? Maybe it's not a permanent use, right? but it's like an interim use that fits the project, but it's got a low front end cost.
That's really interesting. That's yeah, that's like what
You know what I'm getting at, but it fills the space, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that was the other part about, you know, something like, let's say, an automobile auction site, right?
Mhm.
You know, you need, you know, thousands of square feet of places to park vehicles, right?
Mhm, mhm.
Does
But
that
it's
make sense?
temporary, right?
But they don't have to be, conditioned, right?
And- right.
At these sites, they're just typically like under a tent.
Mhm, mhm.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And these industrial sites, they have they were designed with high live loads, right?
Because they're a factory.
Right. That's what I'm getting at.
Okay.
Okay. I think we're getting back on here.
Yep.
Yep. I'm back, and we have Fajr and Nora and Hung. And let me get the clock ready. Oh, why does this keep doing this? And so, Hung, are you going to present, or is Nora?
What?
Who's presenting? Fajr?
All of us.
Well, but who's going to run the slide deck?
To the lead off.
Oh, I can do that. That's fine. Share screen. Okay, got it.
Thank you. You want to go ahead? Are you ready?
Is everybody here?
Yep.
Nora?
Here.
See, her mic is off or on.
Oh, can you hear me?
No, she's good now. Yeah.
She's on.
Yes. Whenever you're ready.
Proceed.
I guess we can just move into slide 2 since you know who we are. Fajr, group members Hong and Nora. So the second slide, we're just trying to discuss what we were thinking of in terms of a specific facade on our building, which you'll see in the floor plans and elevations. So we took inspiration from the flats that are across from us on the same street, John R. So these two buildings, and how they have a staggered elevation, and we're kind of taking that negative space and using it on our east facade, which we'll see eventually. Next slide, Laura.
Yes, so I created a site analysis and pretty much did a little bit of for the flow of traffic, kind of showing the heavy traffic, moderate, primary, and also the primary views, the location of city modern Detroit, and then a little bit of information as what the building is going to be, what our type of construction we're thinking of doing. We ended up choosing precast concrete panels and also steel reinforcement. We know that the building is supposed to be 5 stories. It's going to be for a senior citizen center. And that's part of our programming. We have 50 parking spaces. If you can go to the next slide. We also created this site analysis to kind of illustrate a little bit of the streetscape that is going to be in that area. You can go to the next slide. We did a little bit of research on the type of materials that we wanted to incorporate into our building, and we decided to add a mix of materials on those exterior. And we decided to go with the precast concrete and the terracotta panels and a mix of those equitone facade panels. And it's just kind of an illustration of what we did our research on. Here's another image and information on some of those terracotta facades and the baguettes.
Okay, so these are just early iterations of what we're thinking of in terms of how to orient the building, how to split it up, and how to have the facades act in terms of the units that they are incorporating. And we kind of kept that U shape, rotated it, and took inspiration from the facades that are staggered and then like kind of poking out.
Can you back up a minute?
Yeah.
Which way is north on these axonometrics?
North is this way.
I'm sorry, this way?
So that way.
Up and to the right?
Up into the left upper corner.
Up and to the left is north?
Yeah.
Okay. I really would hope that we could get north arrows and street names on some of these, just to kind of keep orientation clear. Thank you.
Well, we also did a little bit of research on the bioclimatic analysis. This to us was a little bit a challenge and confusing, but we got some of the information from the book, and it kind of gave us the building orientation and the surface to the volume of the ratio of the building. This is so far what we kind of have gathered on that.
Okay, before you keep going, let's just talk about this. So, do you see that the U-shaped or the C-shaped plan you see in the middle to the right here?
Yes.
Do you see that the courtyard faces south, correct?
Right.
Does your courtyard face south?
No.
Yes.
Okay, so that's one
Yes, it
thing
does.
that you need to understand. You're not in alignment there, okay? Second thing, that in order for you to understand this better, do you see there's that little slide bar there beneath that picture? It's a sliding bar right there. You notice that what you showed us is on the far right says poor, ratio of surface area to volume 2.3, right?
Mm-hmm.
You see that? When you slide that slider bar, like we did in the presentation I gave a couple weeks ago, you wait for it to hit ideal, and that's the number you're looking for. Okay?
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I see, yeah.
These are not unimportant. These are fundamental to understanding what this reference is telling you. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. I mean, we're glad you mentioned it because we're not entirely sure how to make it work. Yeah. Thank you.
Send me, if you want to go over this again, you need to send me an email with something and ask a question. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
You want to go to the next
slide?
Yeah. We did the same thing. We gathered information on natural lighting and mass and surface core. Would the same thing apply on the natural lighting? We would adjust, or?
I'm going to be honest with you. Natural lighting really doesn't, in a sense, tell you other than what the sun path looks like. You're not going to find anything there that says this is ideal or this is optimum. It's just telling you that in that orientation, there is a desired path for daylighting and that it's balanced. In other words, the two long wings get sunlight throughout the day, whether it's east in the morning or west at night. But in terms of energy conservation, I'm not exactly sure that sunlight's telling you something in that respect. It's maybe telling you more about balance or the distribution of daylight.
Okay.
Does that make any sense?
Yes.
Okay. It's not the same as the other metrics.
Right. You can go. Yeah. We also created some diagrams to show the growth and how our building is being staggered as it keeps going floor by floor, and it's just more of an illustration of how the process of the building, the way it's growing as it's going per floor.
Is that meant to be cantilevered like that?
No.
Okay.
There is it's just the way the facade
Okay, okay.
those specific legs are, yeah.
Okay. Go ahead.
And now we get into the ground floor. And so this is not the ground floor, sorry, the parking floor. So the underground floor, and our path, we thought like it's pretty much straightforward. We had some challenges early on trying to figure out how to plan the spots, but I feel like we have been pretty efficient with with the layout we have. Also, this distance right here between each egress there is 89 feet apart in terms of walking path.
I guess a couple of questions again for everyone is, you again have the 90-degree or 180 turn at the entry, and you need to tell us that works, and you need to prove that works. Secondly, unfortunately, some of the columns along column line B seem to conveniently drop off, right? And I know why they drop off, because they're not where you want them. The same along, the column line that is the, sorry, can you zoom out a little bit?
Zoom out.
Column line 4 also, all of a sudden, you're just dropping columns as well. So there needs to, and column line 3, there's another one dropping off that you're now getting to maybe almost a, 90-foot span here. We've got to be careful what we're doing with the precast, okay?
Oh, you're right here. Well, this
column line
is
D, for example,
sorry?
so 5 and 2, large spans there.
5 and 2.
Column
Yeah.
line B,
Yeah, you're right.
1 and 5, really large spans.
So Fajer, Nora, and Hong, we talked about this. We talked about sliding north, the 9 spaces, sitting on column line A, so that they sit 2 feet past B. You might eliminate, you might lose that space where you've got 8 at 5B, and you might lose the space at C3 in order to do that. But those 3 columns that you are not showing on column line B4, B3, and B2 would work.
And D,
Yeah, you're right.
D4,
I think-
D3.
Yep.
I think in terms of space, actually, yeah, if we push this up and then we lose these 2, this one, and this one, I think that'll be fine.
Yeah. Well, we talked about that. So that's the problem.
Right.
The problem is that you're not being copious or sort of meticulous about your design work. I want you to get into that mode. I want someone to be like owning like the role of like job captain to make sure this stuff's getting done when we have these critiques.
And I don't understand the difference between F and F2. They look like they're 4 feet apart.
They
You
are
understand?
4 feet apart. Yeah.
I mean, why not stay with F2 and drop F? Okay.
Okay.
And the stair doors on the lower level need to swing into the stairway, right? So I appreciate the travel distance calculation, but again, you have to think about what's happening down there during a catastrophe. When there's a fire event or a smoke event, we're going to scramble toward. It's a little thing, like the door swings into the direction of egress, but like if you're showing these drawings, you guys, to the building official, where her job is to flag that stuff because she gets paid to do it, she's going to eat you alive, right? So you want to make sure you beat her at her game. You want to make sure that you're meticulous about that stuff. And I like everything graphically about this drawing except the Christmas arrows. So like if they're like, they can be green, I don't mind that, but maybe they're like only 30% in value, not 100%.
Yeah.
Because
right?
it's the most important thing on the drawing at the moment.
It is, right? And it shouldn't be, right? The most important thing on the drawing is the parking and the structural.
Right. Label my spaces. Are they handicapped? Are they regular? Are they compact?
Yeah.
How many spaces do I have? What is my column-based spacing and dimensions? Right.
And by the way, if you were working for my friend over at JPRA, he'd be screaming at you right now. because we've already had this conversation. So think how fortunate, right, you are sitting here tonight with us.
Not screaming.
And I'm serious about that. Let's go upstairs.
All right.
I love
So
I
now
love
we
how
move upstairs.
you have load and the fire separation.
Sorry?
Go ahead. I'm just complimenting you.
Okay. Okay, so now in this floor, we have the amenities, the retail, and the different service spaces. And we wanted to stay with the retail spaces that are along John R. and Alfred, so they have both streets. Also, yeah, we tried to keep the services along with the service area that is open for cars to drive into from the alley. And also we have two entrances from John R. right here and Alfred from this entrance right here.
I have a question for Professor Farlow. Lower right-hand side corner, bicycle storage, bicycle dog wash. Is that a desirable retail exposure?
So they have they have a lot of street frontage, but they only have about 3,000 square feet of retail that they have to provide for. So inevitably, they have to make a decision about where entrances are, where community spaces and commercial spaces that seem appropriate for a street frontage can go. And this group has been, I think, in my conversations, as I recall, has been kind of steadfast about the idea that the bicycle storage and bicycle repair is kind of a positive sort of thing to message, right, to the street. Nora, can you weigh in on that, or Hung, can you weigh in on that?
Yes, it is. So Detroit, we have a large community of bicycle that we're trying to push that, try to have people use more bicycle. We can actually see it. People do like a bicycle weekend or like festival for that thing. So this is a good positive.
Okay. So my last question is, isn't this the zone where the bicycle maintenance, bicycle and dog wash, isn't that the zone in the three-dimensional drawing I saw a moment ago where there is no building mass?
Right, that's correct.
But there is.
But there is.
Yeah, and you'll see it.
Okay. I just think you kind of need to be consistent with what you're explaining. Does that make sense? When I see a diagram that doesn't match what the building is like, I'm kind of wondering what happened to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I understand.
Okay.
Move up, go up a floor?
Yep.
Okay. So this is where the units come in, the residential spaces, and we still have some community spaces, such as a terrace, and we are considering this space as a green space, and we're having our exercise room or gym in this space right here. You can't see my cursor, so it's right here in this space. We also have a meditation room right next to it and a outside terrace that faces John R. and the flat terrace, the flat building across from us.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
What is the game room to the upper left? What's inside there?
So next to the washing room, I think we've discussed where we're thinking of having a space where people, while they're waiting for their clothes to wash or dry, they could have a room to
For
pass the
entertainment.
time. Yeah, and we thought of that one game. It's a French game called Boule, and I think in English it's called Balls, and it's about throwing a ball and trying to aim it closer to a certain smaller ball. It's really hard to explain, but it's a game
Okay.
very popular with that age group.
Well, the only thing I was saying is that I appreciated the fact that you put the meditation room where you did, so that it's a nice acoustic buffer to that one bedroom between D and
Exactly.
D and E. I'm wondering if that game you're talking about has a noise in it, whether it's an acoustic issue.
The only noise it makes is really when the ball bumps. So it's kind of like when you play billiard and you have the balls bump, but that's about it.
I think just give that some thought though, in terms of whether you're creating an acoustic problem by doing so. I mean, a game of cards or something quiet, maybe another matter, but.
Right. I feel like games of cards is too general.
Yeah, it's
And
basically just a waiting room, so you can whatever they want to do in there. It's up to open.
In a way, yeah. I mean,
the apartments that I've sometimes seen, spaces like those, they actually tend, in some cases, not to abut a unit. And washing room, for example, is one, and maybe there's a reason for that. But I'm sorry, go ahead.
Me or Hong?
Whoever was speaking.
Oh, do you just want us to go ahead and to the next slide?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Well, then the next slide, it's pretty much the same floors, but repeating. But you will see how that space, so where the gym and the meditation is, going to keep shrinking, and that's where the growth kind of happens, which pushes that amenity space out to accommodate the units. And the facades of those spaces are different, and that's where it shows from the exterior. And these are the units.
But let me share my screen.
Okay.
Okay, Hung.
So this is the unit module we come up with. We change it quite a bit from the very beginning module. We still keep the basic idea that we try to cram as much the water units together so we can share the same pipeline. We'll have the bathroom back to back to each other, and the kitchen area back to each other. So that's 1 bedroom unit, and that's 2 bedroom unit. For this 1 bedroom unit, from last presentation, taking Mark's input, we increased the closet size and reduced the size of the bedrooms. We'll still keep the closet, it's a small one, but for this single unit bedroom floor plan, the bedroom that doesn't have a balcony have a walk-in closet, and try to design the space so it can go with ADA requirement for wheelchair accessibility for the bathroom and the bedroom, and just moving around inside living room from kitchen and living room.
So my question for Professor Farlow is, in that unit on the left, I have a living room that's 11 feet 7 wide, and I have a bedroom that's 11.7 inches wide. Is that okay, or is that proportion perhaps not what it should be?
I think I've always suggested that the living room should have the preferred wider dimension, even if it's only 1 foot. It makes a difference, even in a 1 bedroom unit. It makes a lot of difference, and I think the 1 bedroom is it's moving in the right direction, Hung, but I still think it's too big for everything else that we've just talked about, and the fact that it shares a width equal to the living room is, I think, giving you some latitude to reduce that a little bit.
So
even more.
the reason the bedroom is that big, because I try to have a clearance of 5 feet from the end of the bed to the wall, so the wheelchair can actually
really only need 32 inches clear. You don't need to do the rotation
You don't need to change directions everywhere around the bed.
Okay.
And also, why are there two doors going into the bedroom in both units? There's two
'Cause-
doors going into bedrooms.
One's going into the bedroom and the other one's going into the restroom.
The restroom.
Well,
I think the living room probably benefits from not having the door on it.
That's what I'm
right?
wondering.
Because then you could put a small table there to eat at, near the balcony, to put a plant on it, to write your bills, or send your bills, if you will, and then let the door from the hall area near the bathroom also serve the bedroom.
Okay.
Because you want the wall space.
I was thinking about that, but I don't know.
No, I see why you're doing it, because you got to pass through the rest. You have to pass through the bathroom to get to the bedroom.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what I'm kind of questioning here.
Okay.
Otherwise, they're pretty good plans. I mean, again, I'm seeing some sense of like the dimensionality of them, and I'm seeing some context relative to like balconies. I don't necessarily see the unit next to us, so I don't know how it engages that. But the units are pretty well composed.
So
I think the closets are an improvement too.
Is Professor Farlow, is it okay if they have a shower and not a bathtub?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I think certainly that's a conversation that an architecture firm will have early on with an owner, and they'll do it again after schematic design and design development, because a tub shower is certainly the default, right? It's a tub and a shower that you can stand in.
Right.
But the other option is to do, in the footprint of a tub shower, do a straight up shower with a small 4-inch curb. So it's, room enough. It has room enough for two, for example. And then the other option is the 3x3 shower, or the 42x42 shower that you're showing on, which they are quite honestly the nastiest, because they're the smallest. So I would only do those when I had to.
My other question for Professor Farlow: those that have wheelchairs, is there a way to get into a shower when you're in a wheelchair that is different than a conventional shower stall and a dimension that's required?
Yeah, so you have to do a curbless shower, and that's why you actually need the footprint of the tub shower to be the basis of your design plan for an ADA toilet room. So you do a curbless shower, and that is, by the way, that's a headache in section. That's a headache constructionally, and that's a detail in terms of water infiltration and drainage. That's a detail that separates the men from the boys, if you will, in an architecture firm.
So my comment would be that while you're showing the handicap wheelchair in those bathrooms, okay, while they might be able to use the toilet or the sink, I have my doubts that that handicap person could use the shower.
Okay, so they couldn't. I'll revise the shower.
It may mean that maybe the closet needs to move to the right. That's at the hall. We have to figure out, if that's what you're really trying to show us, that this is great handicapped accessibility. I think you have to ask the question: how do they use the shower stall? Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can always push the closet in the kitchen out.
Closet in the kitchen to the right. Maybe the bedroom doesn't have to be 12/7 in terms of depth.
Yeah. I think there's another layout. I think the tub shower footprint could go along the hall closet wall, running up and down.
Right.
And then the water closet could sit opposite that, next to where you have the shower currently hung.
Okay.
And then
And-
the other question I have
And then slide that whole closet and entry door closer to the kitchen sink.
now, the other question I have for Professor Farlow is, I know because I have a relative that lives in a seniors complex, independent living like this, not all the units have to be wheelchair accessible for a bathroom.
That's correct.
So the question I would have is, like, what's that percentage that you think is reasonable? And maybe you don't have to have every unit that way.
Right. So John and Stefan did the research on that for us, and we should go back to that, and they can validate that number. But I believe the number is 2%, no less than 2, gentlemen. Is that correct? So 2 units total have to be what we call full bells and whistle. That's what I call full bells and whistles ADA, with the 60-inch diameter circle of clearance, right? And the others are all other units, all other 48 units are type B, which are, for the most part, we could call something like convertible units, right?
Okay.
So that's something to take into account, Hung.
All right. So that will make the design so much easier.
And when we
That's
can
correct.
we can do the 2 rooms would be our 2-bedroom. Would that be, or we can do the 1-bedroom ADA?
That's a
I would
good
think you'd want to
question.
split it.
So if you have a 1-bedroom and a 2-bedroom in your plans, in your development, you have to have an ADA unit for each type.
Right.
Okay.
You understand?
Yes.
So you're not really
So-
providing access.
That's right.
Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Okay. So pretty
We're
much.
gonna have to wrap up shortly. Do you have anything else? Because we've not really had any time to comment.
Well, pretty much same thing about 2-bedroom unit. We just got 2 bedroom, got 2 walk-in closets. The left room exactly the same. This one, the living room is a little bit bigger than the bedrooms, since they share the space with the kitchen. But same input view from the previous slide, so I think I can apply to this one. This is the quick section cut of the top one. Is the 1-bedroom unit, and the bottom is the 2-bedroom with the 1-bedroom unit. So you can see the ceiling height, the window height from the floor. You have any input on that?
Well, I'm going to just say my last comment. Since you picked precast concrete,
Mm-hmm.
that's a very specific system. You need to look at those references that I embedded, the hyperlinks that I embedded in the assignment,
Mm-hmm.
and someone needs to basically, I'm serious, needs to understand how precast construction elements go together and what are the standard elements. It is a kit of parts, and they have very specific rules.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, well, actually, we were wondering, could we have steel incorporated into that with precast concrete?
I think one of the options, it may have been the Delta Beam one, had I think the hollow core is the secondary spanning element, and the Delta Beams are steel, actually, and they're the primaries, and I think you have steel columns with them too, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, that's correct.
So
The
that might be
traditional
another,
approach,
that might be the
however,
opportunity for you to look
is
at
to
a
have-
hybrid that may work better.
So you said
Right.
delta beams?
Yeah, one of the options has a Delta Beam, and I believe those are steel columns, steel primary girders, but the secondary is the precast, which is the slab.
I see. Maybe that's option 3A, because there were like 2 options for concrete.
I'm sorry, I don't have it off the top of my head,
Yeah,
but I believe it's there.
I'll pull it up.
So you might want to look at that carefully before you make your final decision, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And probably with precast, you're going to run into an issue that Professor Farlow's talked about. May not be the most efficient for minimizing floor-to-floor heights, depending upon how you use that. And you'd want to use what are called inverted T-beams or inverted L beams for that to be more compact.
Okay, so I'm just quickly run down for the rest of the presentation. Elevations, foresight, section cut of the building, so you can see how the stepping coming up. This quick duct system running to the typical floor.
What was your HVAC system?
That's, option number 3. The what was that one again, Parker?
It was the exterior.
It is actually I'm looking at it. Self-contained packaged air-based units for heating and cooling.
Okay, just again, you know, it may be worthwhile for someone to take ownership of something like HVAC and make sure they're going to become the team expert.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Okay.
Okay. But I'm glad it's fleshing out. I actually like the 3-dimensional quality of this because it's really starting to show how this is starting to be a volume and a form.
Okay. And lastly, just a render of the building. And that'll conclude our presentation.
Thank you. Dan, do you want to start off?
I sprinkled a lot in there along the way about the structure and mechanical and things. So I think at this point I'll let you take over. And then my only other comment maybe about the exterior material choices you have. This would be my 2 cents, and that would be you might want to be careful to think about how many different materials you have on the exterior. I think your initial earlier slide showed quite a few of them.
Yes.
Some really successful projects are done with not very many material choices. David Chipperfield is one architect that does that. I'm not sure. Professor Farlow probably knows Stanley Sadowitz.
Oh yeah,
work.
One of my favorites.
You know, there might be some lessons to learn by that. The other material choice that I thought was intriguing for me is that you chose the TerraClad. TerraClad's interesting because it can be a solid, it can be like a balcony balustrade, it can be a louver. So if you have a HVAC unit on the outside and you want to have like a louver vent, you can use that system to provide that. And if you need to have louvers for shading, let's say a south face or west face, you want to shade some glazing units, it has a louver unit as well. So the interesting thing for me was that it becomes many different elements on the facade that you can actually do with it, rather than with most materials, you sort of have one choice, right?
Mm-hmm.
So my 2 cents would be maybe just look at what you could do with an all TerraClad option and see if that makes some sense to you. It's just a test.
Okay, so just minimize the material as much as possible.
Well, again, just a talking point.
Okay.
Ash, would you like to add in? Okay, let's move on to the last group. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Also, I just want to say, Dan, I'm about to send you an email about the new option, which is option 2B. That's the one with the delta beam.
Okay. Okay.
So I can I think he's away from the computer right now.
Who's next?
Okay,
Trevor's
next. All right, does everybody have it? Okay. Can you guys hear me too? Because I have my computer muted.
You're on.
No, you need to be live.
I need to. So we're good now.
I just want to turn mine off.
Okay.
Or my need to explain that Alec will be.
Oh, okay.
Revisiting this later.
To
Dan.
Let's see.
It's going to be just
in our presentation tonight. Alec wasn't able to
get online with us.
So, can everybody hear me?
I hear an echo.
Does anybody else have their mic on?
You're good. So you just need to.
Okay. All right. So touching back on to our site reflectivity on the site elements around it in Little Caesars Arena, Comerica Park, and Ford Field, just in the general vicinity. We formed our bias based on these vectors at Bill, and then did some massing studies and iterations to then funnel that down to an overall building form. And so in these three diagrams, as I've mentioned before, adjacent buildings are also a factor on the frontage on our street, and we allowed that to, I guess, the lines at which we stop our facades and then respect those neighbors already in the area, along with the site conditions we were given by the program brief and the setbacks that also were reflected in the program brief. I talked to the other day, and although our bias for the L-shaped building didn't originate based on bioclimatic conditions, it kind of just so happened we picked a building that then benefited from a good amount of natural daylight, having a lot of exposure to the east and the west sides, and then that courtyard, which is probably a little bit easier to see. So then this east side, and then this being on the west side, a lot of opportunities there, and then in the courtyard area here for some natural daylight there as well. And then these diagrams slightly from the last time to show that carrying through and still relevant in our first floor program. And these are the same diagrams too that in 3 dimensions with this is a in 3 dimensions, and then this is our vertical. This is the horizontal. You can see here's John R. and here. And this is a synthetic of those two. And then we started to sprinkle in this space that we wanted to look across the street, or I should across the street to the Ransom Gillis house. See here to our vectors, and the line work continues over to suggest that we're not going to protrude past those neighboring buildings that are adjacent to the site. This synthetic drawing with the blue on the typical upper floors, modeling the residential units, and then here we have an overall the orange representing the retail spaces that we wanted to make sure John R. And then a nice secondary street so that we could sort of pull different types of traffic, pedestrian and then vehicle, respectively, to Alfred and John R. And organize it in, and then have conflict of pedestrian interest with vehicle interest trying to enter the parking garage or the parking floor off of the alley right here. This is a revised underground, and you'll note 38 space, something that we know we need to improve on, but does represent me being a little bit hypercritical about what we're achieving right now in terms of the spaces that we can use. So if anything, this can grow. I wanted to make sure, like I took it out to make sure that that car turning into this one-way circuit can get out and then to back up, and just little details like that kind of made us reorder our priorities to take out some of those spaces that we originally did have in. So I have 3 handicap and 1 van stall of. These are a couple of sections of that parking area, the ramp at 13%, and we have it going 80 feet, so it's actually a little bit shallower than 13%. Ground floor, and so this is the van parking space with a available area here behind the retail back up and then exit that way, and then the handicap spaces, 3 of them right here. We may have an opportunity to grow them into this community space. I'm going to try to, moving forward, put that in the underground if possible. And so moving on from that, some overall building sections that'll continue to be developed on the first floor, and then all the mechanical falling around that, and then the residential above as we started looking at in the 3D views. And so for unit layouts, our column grid being angled, shaped building, and a few started to introduce, anticipating the balconies that are actually faced us with an issue of having 13 sized units. So this needs a little bit more development. So our strategy was exactly what our next steps are supposed to be, optimizing our opportunities to best use the side of each unit administration, whether it's adjacent to John R., which is represented Alfred, which is represented with an A, or the courtyard with a C. So we know that needs work, but rather than try to do 13 units right now, which would probably all need a lot of, we want to try and develop a single and a double unit that based on how each unit changes on top of that. Alec could speak more on this if he were here, but a bit of the HVAC and how it's distributed, and then I'll collect here down to our mechanical room, which is on the first floor. And then structure, this is still being, we have concrete columns precast on the underground floor. I think we're anticipating that we can span more generous level because that courtyard doesn't have stuff. I guess, Professor, that we could talk to you a little bit about as we continue to, or Mark as well. I guess anybody who can offer input would be helpful. But right now, this span at those areas, which would be like a part of this L where the ramp goes down, we're idealizing that we can go a little bit further. There aren't 5 story or 4 stories or something like that above of residential. And then we didn't get into specific material combinations for the exterior, but rather than do that, we started to look at just a composition of how we want the exterior of our building in context. The Ransom Gillis house across, or diagonal, sorry, across the street there, and then all the other neighboring buildings too. So in order, the one that we're looking at right now is what I called most conservative optimization proposal, and then this one starts to get a little bit more dicey in terms of the restoration, and then how big some of those windows are. And then the last one, this one is just kind of, it's really going for it, but for the sake of variety, and our idea was that the people are going to be in the city, and even though it's age-restricted housing, maybe they'd be a little bit more spunky than the rest. Right on time. That is the end of the verbal presentation.
Dan? Sorry? I would like the parking plan.
Parking plan?
Is that okay, Mark? Did we ask to look at the plan for a minute?
Yeah, can you fire up the parking plan?
Can you not? Oh,
Can you not?
You have to screen share it.
I mean, I know this has been a real proverbial thorn, right?
You see it? Good.
So what is the outside radius of that 180-degree turn when I first come in?
I'm sorry, could you you repeat that? I
Okay,
had
what is the outside radius of that vehicle turning in, making the 180-degree turn from the ramp? What is the outside radius?
right here.
Yes, sir.
You need it in the snow, right? The tire
I
tracks
see.
in the snow. You need to do that
Oops.
at those hard turns.
Okay.
And my answer to that is you should know that because you should have looked it up before you drew this. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So I just think that maybe Professor Farlow and I need to have a discussion about parking fundamentals because I think that number is maybe going to be closer to like 24 feet. And
For the radius?
I think so, but I think we need to have a clear understanding of what that needs to be. The issue that I do have with the parking lot is, gosh, it's convoluted in a lot of different ways. And it just seems it seems like it could have been a much more straightforward based on some of the other solutions we've seen. And I'm just not sure why it still winds up being a bit convoluted. Do we hit the car count? Because I only see 38 spaces here.
No, we know that we have a little bit more work to do with fitting the rest of the.
What's your target? 50?
50 is the target.
Okay, what
Yeah.
are you accommodating on grade?
We have the 3. What's that? Up on grade, yeah. We have currently three handicap right here, and then the service van
So
here.
does that not make you 9 short still?
We're still working on give it a number. I was trying to do it without infringing on this reserved community space. Thinking back to our go ahead.
I'm just concerned that issue needs to be resolved sooner than later before you keep going with what you have.
Okay.
Professor Farlow, am I mistaken?
I can't hear that. So maybe I'll turn mine on, Trevor.
Okay.
Yeah, please.
He's muted.
Can you repeat that question, Dan?
I think because I'm seeing a shortage of at least 9 parking stalls and still what look like there could be some problematic issues with parking lot negotiation and driving, that I would hope that parking issue gets resolved sooner than later based on where we are in the semester.
Understood.
Mark, would you agree?
Yep. I'm sitting here looking at Ash because I was recalling our experience together last semester and some comments that I shared with our team, our classmates here at least once last week and probably once the week before, which was that I expect that everyone will have a parking plan this week for this benchmark that has problems, and they will probably still exist as problems in benchmark 2 in a month, but we'll get closer to resolving them. But the parking plans are the biggest hurdle for designers in this building. That's why I wanted you to confront them as a subject matter in all of your drawings from the very beginning. And you're all kind of going, wow, this is a mother, right? This is really a challenge to do this. So I'm really glad that you're getting into it. But one of the things that I think you all need to do, like for me, this is just the right amount of vehicles in the parking plan. It's showing how they park and how they move about. But there is another diagram or another parking or another car template that you can use, which is showing the footprints, the tire tracks in the snow, if you will, showing and demonstrating, right, that you can make a 180 or that you can make the 90, and that's causing the radii that you're illustrating here to be the shape and the dimension, right, that they are.
And there's also, Trevor, some columns that doesn't show, like on B6, which will take one space here, C3, which will take off this space as well. So to me, I'm not dictating, and I stopped being a bully here. I think you should change this into a much straightforward, instead of like I appreciate the maneuvering, but the turning radius here and into the entrance is very tricky, as Dan just mentioned, and you don't have many columns here. This one is solved. This one is not. There will be one here. This is solved. This is solved. This is solved because he shaded this gray. Okay.
Yeah, D6.
These bays. So,
but you do have the opportunity to indicate parking on the ground floor, and this is also something that I've said, that I've always known that some of the spaces may need to go upstairs, but you know, when you see like 25% of the ground floor open area, or 35%, 40% being shown as open space for plantings and trees and peonies, and you're still short on parking, you know, so that's got to be like an alarm that got to be going off, right?
Right. So I'm counting 3 stalls here that I don't think are accessible based on column locations.
Right. Yeah, that's what Ash was just pointing out.
I agree.
So I would ask, I guess, about the first floor. Could we then just push up like a community terrace or something, since the residential floors start on number 2 anyway? Does that become maybe a solution where we can start to park people on that space directly above, and the bottom left-hand corner would be the southwest?
The community space is can go on the roof.
Can go wherever we want, right? So this is just kind of me visualizing
Yep.
how.
I never said where it had to go. I think I did say where it goes. I think I did indicate that it goes on the top floor. If you look at the community space relative to the program in terms of how the statements in terms of plans are indicated, I think it suggests that. Now, I also think that you will have some residual space, that is to say leftover ground floor space, that can be planted or can be hardscape for outdoor benefit.
Right.
I'm sorry though, but when I look at the numbers, he has to put, if I'm not mistaken, he has 35 stalls functional on the lower level, which means he has 15 here on that main floor with the green swatch on it. 15 cars have to be parked there to hit 50. And I'm just wondering if there is going to be any green space.
Well, right, that's what I'm saying, is this is me accepting that it might go away.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot less, but I think there's going to be a few more downstairs when, you know, the rubber meets the road, so to speak. Right, when you get serious about the parking level.
Right.
Can you go to the structural columns?
The 3D?
The 3D.
Yeah.
So tell me about your construction system here, the structure system, I'm sorry.
I'll do my best, because I'll be honest, this was something that Alec kind of took the reins on, but I know for the bottom floors or the underground parking, we were planning on precast concrete for the columns, and then precast, or would it be post-tension beams for between that could span up to 48 feet. I thought I read that in one of the documents that Professor Barrow sent us, but and then we were thinking of a transition to steel on the residential floors to start to free up some of the space, and our so steel columns and beams on floors 2 through 5.
From my experience, these two very hard to work together. The precast and the steel. You can use side cast with the steel. The reason I'm saying that is precast works with gravity mostly, so it relies heavily on the weight. Yeah, the post tensioning or pre-stressing, whatever, that contribute to the reduction of the beam depth. Is fine, but the connections rely more on gravity, and they don't have moment connection. Okay, so steel, on the other hand, you can have a moment connection. I'm concerned pretty much about the vibrations. Okay, so site cast is very well rounded around this. Like if you want to do a combination, I'm not saying that you still can use steel, but if you look at the steel building around, still the basement is made of concrete, sort of a concrete piers.
Right.
If you do a retaining wall for your parking garage, usually mostly goes with if you have like a pilasters or protruding columns, they are made of concrete as well, and they start the steel from the first floor or just above the ground.
And
But
you could also use a composite steel and concrete.
Mhm.
That gives you the continuity of the steel and a steel to steel connection on the upper level, and it gives you the stiffness and fire rating and durability of concrete on the lower level. And again, having concrete walls, like Professor Regeb said, for hydrostatic pressure and creating an enclosed volume at the lower level. Does that make sense?
It does.
So there's a steel column inside the concrete. That makes sense. And then when you get up to the next level, the steel column actually continues. And that deals with maybe some of the issues Professor Regeb's talking about, because then it builds the strength and the stiffness and the rigidity in the system.
Does that
The steel elements can create a longer span potential. I remember I thought there was some discussion with Professor Farlow about like post-tension and pre-tensioning, and that's quite a not a common system.
That's correct.
You might have issues with how many trades know how to use that. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah, there's probably cost premiums on that. Is that also correct?
Well, it takes longer. It takes a different skill set. We have to bring them in from Chicago or Cincinnati. They have to be here for the time that they're needing to do that work. So they definitely can sort of demand the cost that they ask for.
Right.
But it is a compelling choice because it is a more slender system. The craftsmanship is usually pretty high. The concrete work is usually of a high quality. And here's what I like about it, that sort of notion, maybe we've talked about this before, sort of sophisticated frugality, where the flooring and the ceiling are one material, like what those post-tension guys left the job site with you to play with is the finished product, right? You don't have to put anything but a rug down on it if you want, right? You don't have to paint it. You know what I'm saying? So like, while it may cost more to do that, you don't necessarily have to bring in a like Ann Arbor drywall and partition to suspend channels, right? And put drywall in, and then do incandescent fixtures or LED fixtures in that ceiling. You don't have to put another floor on it. So you may save money in other trades because you accept the sophisticated frugality of a post-tension concrete floor slab. And
so are you saying that the entire building would be that?
Yeah, I would, or at least for the residential components and the first floor components, because it achieves that fire resistivity, right? Because it's a 10-inch or an 8-inch thick post-tension slab, Dan. But again, it requires a team that has like some hair on their neck, that they know how to do this, right? And those guys they're not hanging around on the corner, right, waiting for a job. They're busy, and they're in other big cities like the South and the East and the big parts of the Midwest.
So is the underside of the slab exposed as the ceiling?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, we actually did that, Dan, at Victor's office in a high-end loft product where they were for sale condos. Actually, the product was district loft, and the floor slabs were just given a nice low luster sealant, and the ceilings were left exposed, and so were the columns with the mushroom capitals. They were all left exposed as part of the interior aesthetic.
And that was appearance grade quality.
Yeah, and they got snapped up, and then you were able to complement that aesthetic with sort of high-end Italian cabinetry, right? Barn doors, or for some partitions or rooms, and then elegant doors and hardware for other rooms. Nice, sophisticated lighting, and handsome windows. And honestly, you know, in your conversation about minimal exterior materials, a la David Chipperfield or Lorcan O'Herlihy, to name a few, you know, that's kind of a nice, that's a beautiful agenda, and we'll have that conversation soon, you guys. But I think it's also a potential agenda for the interior.
So I'd assume also that this has a loft-like quality.
It does, yeah.
Okay, so that's also the
that's another benefit, because then you're able to get a higher ceiling, right?
Right, but it looks like the trendy loft that you want to live in.
Yeah.
Okay.
The one I can't afford to live in.
The one we can't afford to live in, I know.
Yeah, the district lofts, I definitely can't afford to live there. Y'all can go online and look at those and see what those look like.
Okay.
Good. Well, let me wrap up with a couple of points. One is, if you're done, Trevor. Perfect. Your timing is really good tonight for a change. So a couple of observations. One is that for the 4 presentations tonight, I did, unfortunately for you all, sense that there was not some marked or obvious improvement or correction of plates I saw last week. And I'm a little crestfallen about that. I don't know what that means or what that indicates, but like spelling errors or adjustments to the drawings that I suggested last week, I would have expected that you had corrected. Or ways to fine-tune the drawings so that they were oriented correctly, or that they had the right graphics or the right design suggestions vis-a-vis the parking layouts. I actually expected you all to hump on those drawings over this past week to get them to a state of, let's call it, more correctness for tonight. So I'm a little bummed, to be honest with you, that we didn't see that improvement over these past few days, because we do have guests in the house tonight and on Thursday night, and I was excited for them to see your work in its best light. So I don't want to be bummed anymore. So I want to get that off my chest. The next thing is teamwork. Teamwork makes the dream work. So I do have another sense that the teams are not gelling, and I don't know what to say except maybe to try to emphasize that I ain't judging you, and I'm not grading you. I'm grading the product, right? So you all need to find a way to get the product resolved and documented for these benchmarks. If you don't like each other, tough it out, right? If you like each other too much and you can't be hard on your classmate or your teammate, then find a way to be abundantly honest with them. But you have to find a way to work together to execute and implement the work. So you all would be advised, I think, to let someone own the project vis-a-vis, like become the job captain, just like in an office, right? We have job captains in our office that are young like you folks. And we have young people like the job captain who are working with and under the job captain. It doesn't matter that she or he is as young as everyone else in the room. A project needs leadership. And Mies always talked about authority is never given, it's taken. You have to take leadership, right? So if there's someone in your group that you sense is a natural born leader, elect her to be the leader, elect her to be the job captain. There's also got to be someone in the team that's the gatekeeper, right? That makes sure that spelling errors are correct, that makes sure that doorways go in the right direction, that makes sure that if plans have windows in them, that those plans relate to the elevations, and on and on. Make sure that there are north arrows on everything, right? On everything. Even when I told you last week that you need to have north arrows on the axonometric diagrams, you know, make sure. So you need someone that's kind of nerdy like me, kind of geeks out on making sure that all of the nomenclature for your drawings is there, because it helps speed the conversation along. And then as you begin to move into the design discussions for your projects, I think it's really important that the diagrams explain your moves, that they explain how these masses sit on the site the way they do. What's the origin of those decisions? Parse out and explain in iterative drawings how it comes to be. It will be very, very clear. It'll be very helpful. You won't even have to talk about it because you'll have those drawings. And as we've learned with some of your classmates' work, that some of the best formal solutions vis-a-vis bioclimatic responses, wind and natural daylighting responses are actually like the appropriate and therefore groovy urban responses. Who would have figured that out, right? So I think it's still important that you do that. And then lastly, you will hear me say this tonight, and you'll hear me say this every time we talk about this, but the best architecture in your professor's opinion are done by architects who deploy minimal choices. If you have 4 materials, try to reduce it by 2, right? If you have 3 materials, try to reduce it by 1. If you can go with 1 material, you're better off, right? Here's why. Because if you do like all metal panel, right? Some of it can be smooth, some of it can be textured, some of the texture can be wide spaced, some of it can be random spaced or small spaces between each of the ribs. You can change the direction of the texture. You can change the color of the metal panel. And so suddenly you've got this symphony, right, of design choices that cloaks, right, the entire building. So when you look at the sublime work of David Chipperfield, whose work I've actually seen in person, and whose work I'm delighted to see that Dan's invoking, because I think the world of his work and him, or if you look at Lorcan's work, it's kind of all one material. I love that you guys are having to juggle lots of, you know, bowling pins in the air, but I don't think I ever said that the design has to also be this complicated beast, right? Where, you know, your design grade will be higher if you have more materials. My prerogative is to go toward reduction, to go towards elimination, so that you can privilege the opportunities of texture and color.
Yeah, and I think related to that, there's other functional arguments for singularity. So for a structural system, you know, you have one trade that's responsible, correct? You know, they take responsibility for getting things done on time and correct, right? And only they are responsible, and there's no finger pointing. And I would almost say the same could be applied to the cladding, right?
Yeah, I was just doing the joint gesture, right? When materials come together.
Right. One. If you use a singular material, it could be that's also a way of saying, okay, now we understand this goes together as a system, and I have a single supplier who's going to make sure that these components relate and work together, because basically it's all one package, so to speak.
Yeah, they've got the whole gig.
Right. So their job is to seal that building, for example. I mean, it's obvious that you're going to have a fenestration or glazing contractor, right?
Yeah.
But you know, that sort of is going to happen for everyone. So
yeah, so we can take that material, if you will, off the table of this conversation, but you could literally do everything else in, you know, a Shilden rain screen, a terracotta rain screen, or a metal panel, or corrugated metal or Oco skin or fiber reinforced concrete panel. There's nothing ignoble about that. You can produce a really beautiful building out of a palette that is at its reductive essence.
And I think, as Professor Farlow indicated, sometimes they are the most powerful as images in the end.
Yeah, indeed, indeed. Ash, do you have any closing remarks?
I think I hate to compare, but I think they have to put some more time into this.
Yeah,
the figures are coming kind of short and less illustrative unless we ask. So your drawings should talk to us, not just by looking at it. We should discover everything, but we kept asking a lot of questions. So this means that you are not clear enough with your drawings to the extent that we, kind of grasp it from the first look and start forming a concept around it. And
so this is a good point, because I want you to remember that as I pledged early in the year, right? 6.5 weeks ago, for these benchmarks, for benchmark 1, 2, and 3, and we're only at 1 right now. We're going to have guests who come in, like Ash or Michael, later this week, who don't know you. They don't necessarily know what I'm saying to you. They don't even know that Professor Farrow and I are teaching together. So they're coming into this whole conversation in an online format completely cold. So your drawings have to have a higher degree of what we might say self-sufficiency, as opposed to the scenario that may typically play out here or in any studio where you're having this benchmark review with Professor Farrow and me alone, right? That's not the gig. And it's not the gig here because I want you to meet some of the profession. I want you to have the chance to present work comprehensively and professionally at a high level to community participants from participants of the design community, so that you get to meet some people, and that ultimately it gives you a chance to stay on someone's radar. You never know, right, where these job opportunities come. Maybe Michael sees something that Casey or Richard and Cody does that kind of floats his boat. So he's going to say to me next week, what was that guy's name again? What was that lady's name that did the blah blah blah? And he'll remember when career fair comes around. Did they come to the career fair? This is how these professional absorption opportunities come about. So by bringing these people in, I'm creating these connections for you, right? But it's also benefiting you immediately. So it's long-term, and it's potentially a short-term help.
Yeah, just to reiterate that, I know that a lot of faculty have their ears to the ground, and they do have connections to people in practice. And we are asking questions about, hey, who's hiring? What kind of person are you looking for?
Right,
and you might not be aware of that, but a number of us have been successful in placements for students. And so I think that Professor Farlow's arguments are clear. It's not just about the class per se, but it's also about that preparation that we're hoping to provide for you that will lead you into that next opportunity for employment.
And bingo. And that's why you got to put everything out on the field in this class vis-a-vis the level of work that your team is executing. You can't mess up here. You have to push hard. You have to be meticulous about your work. This project is your most important portfolio piece, ladies and gentlemen. It's your most important piece in your undergraduate portfolio. So you can't ignore that, right? It's the project that I want to see at Career Fair next month. It's the project that you're going to want to show when you finish in June, and you start to maybe consider going to another school for graduate studies, for example. It's the project that's going to show what you're made of, right? So you and your teammate have to like exert yourself in this class. That's really key. So that's all I got to say.
So by March 1st, which is the lab module due date, and I know some of you are on progress, but others of you are not. What is your construction type based on looking at Stefan's work? Show me that you're meeting height and area requirements. Area separations where needed are met. Fire ratings of structure, fire ratings of exterior walls, and fire ratings of egress corridors. What should their target be? How many hours? The bioclimatic material that some of you are showing, some of you have got it right, some of you haven't shown it at all, some of it's in progress but needs work. That's not hard. We went through that in class a couple weeks ago, right? I went through the book with you. I showed you how to do it. It's not hard. Just, sit down and do it. Again, you need to understand what is required of this climate from the bioclimatic perspective. Some of you have clearly demonstrated that you have found a way to follow it. If you have not, at this point, at least it needs to be clear to you that you know what the conditions are, and at least acknowledge that your project may not be following it for whatever reasons. Maybe there are reasons related to certain design objectives that are there, but nonetheless, they need to be understood. They need to be documented, because that's one of the walkaways from this class that you won't find in any other class, right? No other class has told you how to design from a climatic perspective except this one. Would that be fair?
Yep.
And I mean that in terms of architectural design strategy. I'm not talking about an HVAC class. I know that's different. So, and then lastly, I would think at this point, very soon, the structural system obviously needs to be identified from the choices that I gave you, and it needs to be flushing itself out clearly so that it is workable for the rest of the term. And that's not going to happen if things have to keep moving because we can't get the parking floor to work, right? So really think about the fact that structure by the first, you need to be at that 90% level part of structure where you're pretty well certain this is how it's going to be, and there's not much adjustment that needs to happen, so that you can move on to your development of HVAC, your development of cladding and enclosure, right? Does that make sense?
Yep.
So those are your targets. Again, go back, start looking at what's due on right before spring break on the 1st of March. And I would say now is the time to start thinking about how that's going to be documented for that day and for that submission, please.
Okay, thanks, Daniel.
Right, thank you.
Ash, thank you for coming in on such late notice. Dan, I'm glad that you were able to be here for the entire time. When I contacted Ash to join us tonight, it was in anticipation that your commitments with your family were going to cause you to need to be excused for the whole chunk. So, and I wanted to give them the chance to get more than just my feedback tonight. So that was the motive for bringing him in. But it worked out perfectly because I think with the 4 projects that we saw, 3 of us got to weigh in, right?
Okay.
So,
yeah, thanks, Ash, for coming in. And
pleasure to be here, Dan, and I hope your mom is doing well. Thank God.
Yeah, things are moving on, and once some transitions have to happen within the next, hopefully by Monday, things will settle back down. Thank you.
Dan, let me know if you need anything, and I'll cover for you. We will have another session. It could be here. It might be down the hall or upstairs. I'll find one of you all and let you know where I'm going to be on Thursday. We'll get together around 5:30, and we'll start hard at 5:45, and we'll do 3 sessions. And I'll have Michael DeCoster with us. And Dan, I'm not sure. Will you be able to be here for the whole time on Thursday? Do you believe?
I believe in terms of online, yes. I'm not sure I'll be on ground with you.
No worries. This works fine. Okay.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Thanks again. See you, man.
Have a good night.